Noting the time and the presence of a quorum, I call this meeting of the Acton Finance Committee to order. We have one remote participant today. So we'll be doing all votes via roll call vote. It'll be okay, Roland. It'll be okay. Okay. I apologize for my voice. I sound worse than I feel, which is a good thing because if I felt this badly, I wouldn't be here. First item on the agenda is public participation. I see a member of the public who's also a select board member who would like to speak to the committee.
Hi again, folks. Alyssa Nickel, member of the select board, resident of School Street in Acton. I shared some of these thoughts on Monday night at the March 3rd select board meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that all of you have heard these in case you didn't catch it. So back 1 year ago in March of 2024, the Finance Committee presented the point of view for FY25. And the recommendations included not adding any new debt until the old debt rolls off. And during, I think it was your most recent Finance Committee meeting, Christy Anderson reminded the committee that there had been a mistake in the bar chart and that the debt that was expected to roll off in FY29 had actually rolled off this year. So I appreciated that. I also noted that in that point of view, the DPW debt service, even though there had been that error and the debt was included that had actually rolled off, the DPW debt service was added to FY27, FY28, FY29, and so on, at an amount of $35,000. So we're looking a little bit higher than that now, but it was I'm doing it again. Million, thank you. Please, everybody correct me when I say the wrong numerical value. 15 million in FY27, 15 million in FY28, and then 5 million in FY29. Another recommendation that was made in March was not asking residents to approve any excluded debt projects in the same year as an operating budget override. Then 6 months later, in November of 2024, in the Finance Committee's presentation of the point of view for this coming fiscal year, there were some more recommendations. I will note that the first slide, which described Acton's strengths, and I appreciate the positivity of that first slide, was that we have 99% plus on-time tax payments. And the note was that this is a sign of health in the property owner's ability to pay. Now, I realize that a lot of things have happened since then, and the economic outlook is not so certain. The recommendation, though, that came with that point of view was to smooth out the tax increase and the tax impact on residents and course correct for tax increases that have outpaced inflation. So I've heard several times from several members in both Finance Committee meetings and ALG meetings that the Finance Committee gave a direction to the town to keep total spending at a maximum of 3%. I didn't remember that, so I went back to review the meeting and I reviewed it again and again. So I've watched it 3 times now, as well as being present for that presentation. The narrative was, keep in mind recent tax increases over 3% and correct for it. So what was said to the select board and to the town manager who was present was that we needed to keep tax increases at 3% or below, not total spending increases. There is a slide that does have the text. Hold on 1 second. I did write it down. Oh, goodness. Oh, That was the text on the slide. Keep in mind recent tax increases over 3% and correct for it. So I just want to make sure that everybody keeps that in mind, that this was the directive and the recommendation from the Finance Committee to the town when you are discussing the consensus on the ALG plan. Thank you.
Any other public participation? While we're at the public participation phase, and in response to an email that I received from Ms. Nickel, I'd like to bring up the topic of the bonding of sidewalks. This was a question that was emailed to me prior to our last meeting. I did not get it on the agenda on time, and didn't put it on tonight's agenda either, but I do consider this to be a public participation question, something worth bringing up. Now, in one of our previous point of views, we said that we are not interested in bonding sidewalks. And I believe, and the question that was asked to me was, would we be willing to have some amount of sidewalks be part of a bond of a different project, of a larger project? And my recollection of this, and of course it could be exceptionally fuzzy and hazy, so I'd like everyone else to please weigh in as well, is that when we were asked about bonding sidewalks, we were asked if we'd be willing to entertain one big sidewalk bonding initiative where we would do all the sidewalks in one fell swoop or have authorization for it in one fell swoop. And that our recommendation was that we were not willing to do that. I don't recall saying that no sidewalks should ever be bonded in any way, shape, or form, period. I don't believe that was the direction we wanted to go, but I definitely remember being asked if we'd bond all, and I'm going to get the number wrong, it was either $72 or $76 million worth of sidewalk projects at one time. And at the time, we said, no, we're not interested in doing that. Is my memory wrong on that? Was it a no, we don't want to bond all sidewalks all at once, or was it no, we never want to bond any sidewalks ever?
All right, well, I'm older than you, so my memory isn't as good, but it struck me as pretty dumb to say we never want to bond any sidewalks ever. My recollection is, do we want to do one big bond and do a lot of sidewalks? The fact of the matter is, in the most current CIP plan, sidewalks are in there for general fund debt. So that bond, they're different, but I think we would have objected to that CIP plan if we were against borrowing money for sidewalks.
Did that address your question? Very good. I would also like to respond to your comments from this evening. We will be more clear in the future. When we said we want to keep increases below 3%, I thought we were very clear in that we are very concerned about future overrides. And just because some debt has rolled off in this 1 year, we're going to have a decently small year-over-year tax increase. The spirit of the comment, and I'm going to ask the committee to let me know if I was off on this. The spirit of the comment was, we need to do everything in our power to avoid future overrides. Slide 8 says another override in the near future would likely fail. We do not support an operating override without structural change first. That supersedes the 3% increase. When we talk about 3% increase, and again, maybe we need to be super crystal clear, and I really thought we were. When we talk about a 3% increase, what we've said in meetings for, I think, the entire time I've been on this committee is we are constrained by Prop 2.5, which is where we get 2.5, but we throw in 0.5% for new growth. I even asked during the budget workshops this year if 0.5% was a too rich, too light, too conservative, too much, or if that was a number that everyone felt was comfortable to use as the 3% number. So I see where you're saying that we said, keep in mind recent tax increases over 3%. I see where you could find some confusion in that. But if you pair it with the overarching statement from the previous slide, that we are doing everything in our power to avoid overrides, the 3% matters. Where you have your increase matters. If you have, whatever you do in excluded debt doesn't count towards this. It doesn't count towards the possibility of an override. And so, first I'll ask the committee if I mischaracterized that I just assumed people understood we were trying to avoid overrides, and that's where the 3% number came from. Or am I wrong, and we were saying increases should only be 3%, overall tax increases should only be 3%? Greg?
I share your memory, and I'm not as sick tonight as you are, although I am probably as old as you are, so who knows?
We'll check driver's license.
We'll check later. My recollection from what we presented in the fall is that there were two bullet points that were always next to each other. And one of them was the override in 2024 was whisker close. And we were concerned that another override too soon would not pass. And second, that if 3% is the growth rate that we find sustainable, one of the challenges that we have is inflation doesn't always stay under 3%, but to the extent that we can keep things in that zone, we were in a better position when we did need an override at some point in the future of making that case. Now, since then, things have changed. And so one of the challenges we have is we can go back and debate who said what last fall, and that's fine. If we misled someone, our apologies. But it's really hard to misread what's going on today. And I think the word of the day is uncertainty.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to put a pin in that until you hear unless you listen to the ALG meeting update meeting this morning. I'm going to ask you to put a pin in that until we get to the ALG meeting update. Thank you.
The pin went in.
Does anyone else at the table feel like the 3% number was meant to be an amalgam number of both debt and operating, or was it your understanding that it should be an operating number?
Then let me finish then. One of the things that was in an earlier draft of our viewpoint was a chart that did show the bond data that when we determined that it might not be correct was dropped from our final presentation. So the one that we actually delivered in the fall did not have that slide in it, and I thought that was a significant edit that we made in the final process of agreeing what is it that we were, as a committee in agreement on. So that slide went away.
Anyone else? Okay. At this time, we are all set with public participation. We're going to move on to the update, the FY25 Q2 financial results. So I invite Marianne and Teresa, Ellie, Mary Ann and Ellie, sorry. We're doing minutes later, so I've had Teresa on my mind. I apologize.
I'll correct the minutes.
Oh, no, I made the mistake. You can leave it in there. That's fine.
She's. I think you're all set.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So I did hand out two things. One is the Q2 presentation from last year, so if you want to compare while we're going through, you're able. The other one is a memo that we drafted addressing some of the questions that came up at the last time we gave a presentation. Some of those things required additional research or reaching out to other department heads. So we synthesized it into a handout that you can review at your leisure.
So does everyone have a copy in front of them?
Oh, you
No.
have some of my things? I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Steve, Greg, and Roland, do you have copies now of the memo? And yes.
That's right.
So good evening. Thank you very much. So I'm Marian Fleckner, and Ellie Anderson is with me tonight. And we are presenting the Q2 fiscal year 25 quarterly report. Realizing that it is March, thank you very much. We do appreciate folks being flexible with our schedules. We were on for February, so thank you, Jason and FinCom members, and allowing us to come tonight, March 11th. And with that, we will be working with Jason on coming back for Q3, hopefully on April 22nd, so we'll be back on schedule. So thank you very much for that. Before handing off to Ellie, who does this tracking for us and works with the departments, we also wanted to mention that we are currently working with departments, believe it or not, end of year, fiscal year 25. It sounds crazy. You feel like things just start and then it's the end of year. And where that is going well, and under John's direction, working with departments to ensure that whatever is going to be the turn back, that it is going to be consistent with what the overall needs are. And we're confident that we will reach that. So we just wanted to mention that. And at this time, this is also the second time we're coming to you with the full report of operating and the revenue expenses, but also enterprise and revolving. So this is the second time we're coming to you. And thank you as well for that recommendation. I think we believe that it hopefully gives you a full view of what expenses and revenues are. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Ellie. Thank you.
Okay. So as we all know, this report will be published on the town website tomorrow morning under the quarterly reports section. So looking at the general fund from a revenue perspective, taxes are at around a little over $56 million collected, which comes out to just under 50%. So that's right on target where we would like to be at this point in the year. State aid is also around 50%, and local receipts are at 42%. Just as a reminder, the largest revenue generator for local receipts is motor vehicle excise. The bulk of that revenue is collected with Commitment 1, which those bills were issued on February 26. So we're expecting to see a sharp influx of local receipt revenue over the course of March and April. So all combined, we've collected just over $60 million in revenue, which is 49.38% of our revenue target. From an expenditure side, we've expended nearly $21 million of the municipal operating budget, which is around 53.14% spent, which is also exactly what we would expect at this time of year. Moving on to the enterprise funds, I've also included the commuter lot fund at the suggestion of one of the members last meeting. So we'll have some information from that as well. Looking at the septic enterprise fund, through the end of December, we've collected $73,000, which is 73% of our revenue target, and spent just under $40,000. Looking at the transfer station enterprise fund, we've collected $543,000, which comes out to 81.9% of our revenue target. And we've spent $326,000, which comes out to almost 39% of our spending authorization. Looking at the sewer enterprise fund, through the end of December, we've collected just over $1 million, which comes out to 64.55% of our revenue target. And we've spent just over $1 million at $1,083,000, which is 57.47% of our spending target. I did take a peek at this budget to see why we're trending over 50%, and it turns out that the debt service has been paid in full for this fund, which is kind of increasing the spending a little bit. The ambulance enterprise fund, also at your recommendation, we've included the subsidy to give a little bit of a clearer picture of what's going into this fund from a revenue perspective. So we've collected just over $733,000, or 52.38% of our revenue target, and spent around $706,000, which comes out to around 36% of our spending authorization. We're in the process of finalizing the financial model for this fund and are hoping to bring a recommendation for a rate increase to the select board in the next month or so. Moving on to transportation, we've collected $118,000, which is 46.93% of our revenue target. And we've spent $222,000, which is around 47% of our spending authorization. And an update, which I should have included, that we were awarded a grant from Mass DOT in the amount of $125,000, which will help to fund transportation operations in fiscal year 2026. So that's some good news. So the commuter lot fund, it's a bit different from the enterprise funds because it's a special revenue fund. So this one, as you'll notice in the town meeting warrant, doesn't have a receipt estimate. It just kind of collects money, and then expense appropriations are approved at town meeting and transferred from the revenues that are collected. So there's not a revenue target per se. And when we're looking at the fiscal year 2025 budget, that expense is debt service related to the purchase of 1921 Maple Street. Okay, moving on to the revolving funds. First up, we have the fire alarm network, which has collected $3,700 so far and spent just under $20,000. The bills related to the fire alarm boxes tend to be issued in the April-May timeframe, so we'll expect to see revenue coming in this spring. The building inspector revolving fund has collected $234,309 and spent $118,584. Sealers of Weight and Measures has spent around $2,300, or 11% of its revenue allowance, and that was collected, and has spent just over $10,000, collected $2,300. Again, these bills are issued by the health department in the spring timeframe. Food service inspection has collected around 67% of its revenue target, and the expenses are hovering around 51% spent. Hazardous materials is just under 32% collected, with spending around 29.3% of its spending authorization. Historic District Commission, the smallest budget of all of the revolving funds, has collected $160 and has spent nothing thus far. The Stormwater Inspections Revolving Fund has collected just over $44,000 and spent just over $10,000. The Crosstown Connect Revolving Fund has collected $11,000 and does not yet have any expenses for the fiscal year. Roadway Maintenance has collected just under $9,000 and has spent around $3,500. The Public Shade Tree has not received any collections or spent any money so far this year. And then Fire Prevention, our newest revolving fund, through the end of December, it's collected $16,250 in permit revenue, and there's not yet any expenses coming out of this fund. And then finally, Recreation. Through the end of December, it's collected $193,543 and spent around $434,000. Registration for camp, I believe, began in January, so we're starting to see revenue coming into this fund. And with speaking with the Recreation Director, it looks like our enrollment is ahead of where we were at this point last year. So we'll see some good revenue coming in here when we're back next month for Q3. And that's it. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. This is really, really useful information. I had a chance to see the press release that was issued on the $125,000 grant for the transportation. And one of the points that was made was that there was increased competition. Not everybody who asked for a grant got one. And so my question is, we got one. Was it because it was regional in nature and included a couple other towns, or was there some other factor?
So Mary Ann and I were actually involved in the grant writing process with Penny Funioli and Laura Ducharme over in Health and Human Services. So the application for that grant, you're correct, is regional in nature. It's actually for the Crosstown Connect transportation service, providing on-demand transportation services to those who need it, with priority going to elderly people, people with disabilities, and people who need transportation to medical appointments. And the dispatch center that runs that program, there's also participation from the town of Littleton and the town of Sudbury. So the application, Acton is the fiduciary, but the application was for Crosstown Connect, the entity, which includes at this time Littleton and Sudbury. And we were very pleased to hear in talking with Mass DOT that the Crosstown Connect, it has a very good reputation with the state.
On the Crosstown Connect, it didn't say that they had any revenues or any expenses.
So go ahead.
So how can that be if we're operating a service?
Yeah, so the vast majority of the expenses and the revenues related to running transportation flow through the enterprise fund. So that's where you're going to see the bills for dispatch and the bills to pay the drivers and the revenue from the LRTA that we get for providing those services. What flows through the revolving fund are public partner payments. So that $11,000 was either from the town of Littleton or Sudbury. It's kind of their contribution to the cost to operate the dispatch center. So to answer your question, the operating expenses flow through the enterprise fund primarily.
And so far, that is Littleton.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. Can you walk me through the sewer enterprise situation? If I'm following you correctly, in the second quarter of last year, we had collected 50% of the money, and if I was taking notes fast enough, it's 64% this year? Oh. Yeah.
Steve, did you say the sewer or septic?
Sewer.
Sewer, thanks. I didn't hear you.
So that could be for a number of reasons. It could be so I guess that revenue number includes revenues. So I guess to take another step back, this isn't a super coherent answer.
Go as far back as you need to.
Yes, but there's two funds that collect money on behalf of the sewer enterprise. One is the enterprise fund, and then the other one is a betterment fund. So the people who were issued betterments to fund the cost of the construction of the sewer system, those betterments are collected on their quarterly tax bills, and they go into the separate fund. So this revenue number includes money from monthly billing, but it also includes money from betterments. So I don't have a specific answer as to why this number is so much more than 50%, but I would hazard to guess that someone could have paid off their betterment early.
Okay, and the expenses are running 57% versus 30% at this time last year, so what's the explanation for that?
So one of the driving factors, as I mentioned when we were going through this slide, is that the debt service for the entire year has been paid in full. So my interpretation is that number's slightly inflated because that big expense of several hundreds of thousands of dollars has already been paid.
It's slightly inflated, or it's more than double last year's. Thank you.
To follow on that same question, both the transfer and the septage enterprise funds, so the two previous, are running well below 50%. Is that because there's some entity that comes in late in the year that drives it up from an expense perspective?
So are you asking if there's an expense that we're expecting later?
Yeah, if you're,
In the year.
if we're halfway through the year and we're at 35, if you go back one slide,
Mm-hmm.
and then, so we're 10% below calendar rate. If you go back another slide, we're well below calendar rate. Are there known knowns? Is there always something that comes in the second half of the year that is the expense side?
I think that's something I'd have to dig into a little further if there's something specific that's different between this year and last year.
Yeah, no, it's not super alarming because both years, are, they show a trend. They show that they're consistently below expenses at this time of the year. I'm just curious if we know why that is.
I know at least for the transfer station, there is a capital line that's used as contingency, or if we get towards the end of the year and things are looking good, and we're below our spending authorization, then there is the flexibility to spend that money to address a need. For example, at the end of last year, we purchased a new trailer for the employees to work out of. So that could be one explanation, but I think if there's anything specific that we're expecting, I'd have to look a number of years back and see what that might be. I have to get back to you on that.
Thank you. Alex?
Hi. First off, thank you for all of the work in putting this presentation together for us. This is my first time sitting through it, and I appreciate seeing all of this. It's a great segue with Steve and what you just said, Jason, is trends. With reporting out financials, the trends and calling them out, favorable or adverse, on the presentation, I think would be very helpful for us from, so if there's a 10% swing from year over year, or are we trending in the right way, or adverse or favorable, that could bring a lot more clarity and detail into the overall conversation and not put you guys on the hot seat. Yeah, and so that my question is though, so I had a statement and a question. That was the statement. Here's the question. Is anything popping out favorable or adverse trend-wise that we may not be able to see just by looking at these that you want to share tonight?
In preparing the report, I'd say that, looking at the results through the end of December, there wasn't anything that stood out to us as alarming. Actually, it appears the outlook on all of these funds is positive. So, yeah, I would say, I think we, in preparing this, would all say that things are performing as we would expect and seem to be very favorable.
No news is good news then, in that case. Yes, thank you for that.
And also to Ellie's point is that I think this is worth mentioning again. This is something that during our budget sessions and what John recently mentioned is that we're able to utilize these counts with staff salaries where appropriate if it's work that they're performing. And so we had reported out that there are 20-plus positions among the enterprise and revolving accounts where staff salaries and benefits like health insurance are paid out of these accounts. So I think that was also worth mentioning again, and thank you for that direction.
Before I let you go, I'm just going to see if Dave Willinghoff has a question, wants to raise his hand, or if he's just going to, if he's going to stay on mute. I will take that as no question. There he goes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Willinghoff.
I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Okay. Gang.
So I saw that you kind of already responded to the questions in this document, but I still want to ask. So I noticed that in both last year and this year, both the Septic Enterprise Fund and the Sewer Enterprise Fund has a high position of free cash. It's almost 100%, and the response is try to be more conservative. And then, Marian, you also mentioned that some of that can be spent on merit-based salary increase. So question is, do you have a plan to spend out this free cash? And number two is that if this is spent for some salary increase, would that reduce the spending from the general fund? Because in the general fund, I already have some reserve for compensation increase.
So I think to just quickly answer one part of that is that the percentages, the labor distribution, so it's not just a full 100% salary that is, for example, off sewer or sealer of weights and measures. It's a percentage, for example, 12% of that employee's time spent on that function. So it's never going to be exact 100% away from operating, but it's through labor distribution.
All right, yeah. And same, so the first question is that, do you have plan to spend down this free cash?
So did you ask about the sewer fund specifically?
Both sewer and septage.
So at least for sewer, I had presented, I guess, a year and a half now, a financial plan to the select board. So we're actually in the process of increasing our reserve position for one reason, that the sewer is a highly capital-intensive enterprise. There's miles of pipe, there's 11 pump stations, there's the entire sewer plant to contend with. And part of one, we just completed a rehabilitation project of the sewer plant, and the debt service for that project is coming due. So we've been kind of ratcheting up our reserve position so that we can afford to take on that debt service while also minimizing the burden of that on the ratepayers. And then secondly, as part of that borrowing, we had to complete a fiscal sustainability plan, which is a really intensive project, and the product of that was a recommended number that we should be putting aside annually to address our critical capital needs. So at least with that fund in particular, we're working through all of that to make sure that we're taking care of our assets in the most responsible way possible.
I see that on many of these, you do have notes on the bottom right. And maybe it was there for sewer, I went by. That is exactly the type of information that we would love to see. So, for example, to Dr. Chen's point, $1.8 million annual budget, $1.6 million in retained earnings, or free cash. If you've got a specific goal in mind that you know is 1, 2, 3, 5 years on the horizon, seeing that in here goes, okay, we understand where they're going with it, we get it, versus this is a $1.5 million puddle of money where we're taking $320,000 out of, this time it's out of retained earnings, and sometimes it's out of the general fund. If it's coming out of the general fund, we need to know why. So having just to, I think I'm piling on to what you said. I love the notes. This presentation has come leaps and bounds over the last couple of years, and I'm glad Alex was pleased with it, because this is definitely a huge step in the right direction, but fleshing out those notes for some of the larger expenses that we know are coming would be greatly appreciated. Any other comments, or can we cut them loose? Thank you very much for your time and presentation. We'll see you on April 22nd for Q3.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
When I wrote this agenda last week, I had no idea that the ALG meeting was going to be as interesting as it ended up being this morning. So, doing the quick update on what happened at ALG before I get into what was termed a monkey wrench. During the public participation component of ALG this morning, Selectman Martin stood up and said that it is his position, his opinion, that the town has already paid and has already cut over the last couple of years, and that getting to the 3%, and I'm paraphrasing this a touch, getting to the 3% that we've recommended would be too onerous a task. He pointed out that last year, the town went up 6% and the schools went up 10%, and that capital projects had been postponed until this year. It was his position that we are telling them they're damned if they do and damned if they don't, that you can't spend when there's a threat of an override, and then you can't spend right after an override because it's too close to the time. I believe that is an accurate assessment of what he said. I don't believe I'm putting any words in his mouth. I'm getting the okay shrug, which means I didn't do too badly. I would suggest that we're not saying you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. We're saying times are tough for everyone, and we need to be careful with what we do with the single tax bill that comes in front of all of us. With regard to FY25 updates, the schools pointed out that they are trying to fix the numerous holes in the roof at the admin building, and that's starting in April. On the municipal side, the 2-station fire department staffing pilot program is in full swing. There will be feedback in spring. The pilot ends in May. That the revenue is on track, in particular, and we just heard some of this from Ellie as well, 2.9 million of excise tax has come in, and that's more or less half of the projected billable amount, so that revenue is on target. It is at this point in the meeting where things took a change. The representative from the school committee, Tori, she calls it a monkey wrench. We're gonna use that phrase because I can't come up with anything more polite. She said that the school committee and the school administration have gone and scrubbed their numbers as best they can, and while they are sticking to the 3.12% increase for operating increase for fiscal year '26, as per the plan, as per the ALG that was sent out to everybody, that they cannot possibly envision keeping it below 6 1/3 for the foreseeable future, for all of the out years, for the 4 out years that are on the ALG plan. To be clear, they're saying that they need an operating increase of 5.25%, since Acton represents 82% of the enrollment. When that gets washed through the appendix and the regional agreement, it comes to an assessment increase of 6.33% for fiscal year '27, which more or less puts us in an immediate override need for FY '27, and if by some miracle we avoid it in FY '27, we will need it in '28, we will likely need it in '29, and we will likely need it in '30. 6 1/3 on the school side eats up the entirety of the 3% that we're going to be able to get from Prop 2.5. Now, there are two ameliorating pieces of information that need to be brought out. The first of which is there is going to be a full court press in the legislature to try and change the way that Chapter 70 is written so that we can not have such a systemically poor contribution from the state. That sounds wonderful, and I applaud those efforts, and if they ask me to come and stand by their side and advocate on behalf of the town, I will be there in a heartbeat. They say you can't fight City Hall, good luck fighting Capitol Hill. So we'll see what comes of that. The other potential ameliorating factor that was brought up is that they are hiring an outside consultant to do cost savings redux. So they did a cost savings this last year on the elementary side. They found another 20 or 22 FTE to let go of. That is how they met the 3.12% for this year. But it is their position that that is untenable moving forward. So they're hiring another consultant. The results of that consultant work will not be here until the December timeframe. We made a point of saying, okay, there being RFQ for the consultant is April 9th, starts May 1st. The December 1st is the date for the report. So obviously anything that they come up with would not be in FY '26, but could theoretically have impact on FY '27. She then asked us if we would get to consensus in changing the out years on that line item. We of course said we would not. We said that we wanted to give the town, the municipal side, an opportunity to come back in a reasonable amount of time and see if they would like to true up their numbers as well. Town looking at 3.78. Maybe that's not realistic given the state of union negotiations, whatnot. We didn't want to, if I'm speaking properly here, we didn't want to say okay to the school side without giving the municipal side an opportunity to true up what they wanted to say as well. There was a comment from one of the select board members that anything that's outside of FY '26 is just forecasting anyway, and so this is just grabbing a big number in the future, and we'll see about, and we'll start paring it back later like we always do. I don't know that I agree with that assessment. I hate a 6.33% assessment increase. I hate the concept of override every other year or 3 years out of 4, 4 years out of 7. I don't see that ending well. But I appreciate that they said as early as they did that there is a major problem. I suspect, and I dare not put words in the town manager's mouth, I suspect that when they scrubbed their numbers, having had new health insurance premium rates since this ALG model pegged it at 3.78, I suspect there's going to be a change in the municipal side numbers as well. I don't think that's an outlandish statement to make. Scott and I made the point that all these items are inextricably intertwined, that the taxpayer receives one bill for school operating, school capital, town operating, town capital, and Minuteman. And that we all have to figure out how to pull the 5 of those things together. Before I unleash questions or comments on the monkey wrench that Tori brought us, I do want to point out one thing on the DBW building, that the DBW project that the town manager clarified and brought to us. He is using as a conservative number for the project 40 million. When asked why the difference between the 37 million that the DPW building committee is using and the 40 million that he's using, he said that it was to be on the conservative side because we don't really know where the numbers are going to come back at the end of this month. I applaud that. It is much better to be conservative and come in under than to be aggressive and then have a number that exceeded what had been discussed in the past. Furthermore, that $40 million is the expected total cost of the project, of which we are to subtract out the $1.225 million that was spent to get to the 60% design phase. And it is his recommendation to the select board that they use all of $1.5 million that's in the capital stabilization fund, which we have discussed in the past, whether we like that or not. And back to other assumptions, because this is all, it is important to have all the assumptions at play. 30-year fixed at 4.25% rate. This would bring the average single-family tax increase from 796 down to 787 in FY27. It brings the yearly payment, and obviously this is to be determined, rates dependent, et cetera, to 2.3 million per year starting in FY27. All of that information was given to us prior to the monkey wrench. Tori did say that the school committee wanted to go on record as supporting the DPW, and I thought this was an interesting way of threading the needle. She said that they did support the DPW building so long as the select board and the finance committee could come to agreement.
What did you say the increase would be to the single-family tax bill?
787. That is prior to the 6.33% that Tori brought to us. With the 6.33, the average single-family tax bill projection, and these numbers need to be scrubbed. This is early. This information is literally 12 hours old, and I had to work all day, so I did not have a chance to double-check these numbers. I am reporting what was said. We will have to dig into it in more detail over the coming weeks. FY27 increase of 1,209, followed by 940, followed by 995, followed by 1,086. Those are increased numbers, year-over-year increase numbers.
940, 995.
1086. So I posit, and I'm going to throw this open to the table here in a minute,
And then 1204 was what year?
FY '27. So I will posit that there's two, so all that said, we spent the last couple of minutes on ALG saying, are we at consensus? And I reiterated our position that we are not at consensus on two counts. One, we are not at consensus on the DPW project, and two, we are not at consensus on the municipal operating budget for next year. I did say that there were two votes, to the best of my head count, for the municipal budget as it stands now. And I would also like to posit that there's two ways to look at this monkey wrench. And this is where Harry Truman always said that what he wouldn't give for an economist with only one hand. On the one hand, one way to look at this is there is a storm coming and we absolutely cannot spend anything that we need to not spend anything we possibly can now to protect from the storm. The other way to look at this is we're already going to have an override in FY '27. If not in FY '27, then guaranteed in FY '28. And do we believe that absolutely everything has been done at this time and we need to have some pressure relief valve since perhaps, and I'm throwing this out there as perhaps, the town has put the screws to their budget for enough years that they finally have reached their breaking point as well, and that their breaking point is merely $250,000 to $300,000 this coming year, whereas the school side is off by 2.5% increase. So whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, I believe this monkey wrench has bearing on how we look at the consensus possibility for this year. And with that, I will shut up, and I see that Steve is the first to turn on his microphone.
Funny thing, I spent today looking at the ALG plan and noting that I thought it was understated in the out years. I had no idea about the monkey wrench. And so I'll maybe help the town out with a little scrubbing. I note that there's no increase in the town's debt service number in the years 27 through 30, yet in the CIP, it says we're going to spend $26 or $27 million in general fund debt category in those years. Sidewalks, fire engines, stormwater management. So at the very least, we should be seeing increasing debt service on that $26 or $7 million reflected in the numbers. The other thing I noted was that when I looked at the years from fiscal 20 to fiscal 25's budget, that both in the case of the schools and the municipal side, if you look at the spending ex debt, other than the 3% increase for the schools, in those periods, we only had average annual increases in excess of 4%. And so my conclusion to that was there is no way we can get under 4% in the forecast for that number if we've never gotten to that in the last 5 years. Absent some concrete plan to reduce operating expenses. Now, maybe the consultant for the schools will come up with something, but I don't think we can go with whatever it is, 3 3/4% compounded going out for the town either. I think 4.25 would probably be a better assumption. A lot better than 6, but more than we have in there. So I think we even have if the schools are going to call it a monkey wrench, I don't know, what's the smallest tool I can think of? An Allen wrench for the town side, but we got problems there too. As far as the other stuff goes, I think I told you last time, I'm okay with the town budget as it stands.
You were one of the 2 votes that I was counting as being on board with it.
The other thing I will say is, in terms of forecasts, yeah, we can ignore all this, but if we're asking the taxpayers to pony up money for 30 years for a DPW building, I think the very least we can do is give them an accurate 5-year forecast of the big picture. Anything less on our part would be a dereliction of duty.
Playing
the
devil's advocate,
circumstances.
how accurate can you be 5 years out? How accurate can you be 3 years out? I'm playing devil's advocate because I know what I'm going to hear when I go back to ALG.
Apparently, the schools can figure out something. If it actually is based on history, it's going to be a whole lot more accurate than an assumption that things are going to get better next year when you've done nothing to change. I mean, what did I say a few meetings ago? 97% of the increase in the town budget was in 3 line items: salaries, Middlesex pension, and health insurance. They got to fix something of those 3 to bring their expense growth down practically a full % from where they have been in the last 5 years.
Alex, I feel like I poked the bear. You can talk now.
I had a massive allergic reaction to the comment about, who cared? What was that comment about a forecast? We don't need one or something along those lines?
That it was, if it was, we'll worry about next year after we get done with this year. because
Right. Yes, foresight and whatnot. So, accounting is looking at the past and doing the bookkeeping for the numbers. Finance is looking forward with what we have to work with and making assumptions based upon our inputs at the time. Those inputs change every single month. Financial planning and analysis is a trillion-dollar industry throughout this world. Having a 5-year forecast that we look at every month, that we can make updates on and start having strategic decisions, conversations with, is kind of the crux of what I feel we should be doing here. So monkey wrench, if we had a decent, there's enough inputs around to have a financial model. If we had that financial model, we could avoid monkey wrenches where we go from 3 1/4 to, 6%. Oh, sorry, I swear a lot.
Trust me, worse has been said from this.
I know, and I try to keep it for the office. So it goes back to what I said in the last finance committee meeting, is that 3-year, 5-year, 7-year, some sort of financial forecast, starting to put that together and starting to do some modeling for the town, both the school side and the operation side, would be extraordinarily beneficial to everyone, especially those who are saying that we need to deal with right now and worry about later, because later is going to be here in a minute.
So I'm hearing from you that you'd like me to go back and ask for the financial model that spit out the 6.33% number. I think that's a totally reasonable ask. Mr. Noon,
100%.
You're asking for the town manager, what line item, or put in a new line item in that excluded debt part? Is that what you're asking for?
We have a debt service number on this plan that I would hope that we could use a bigger font at some point. So right now in this plan, in debt exclusion town, the number goes from 455 to 27. It never changes going out those other 4 years. Now, it may not be a debt exclusion, but we've got, like I said, something like $26 million that we're planning on in the capital plan, but we're not showing it that I can see in this ALG plan.
Please excuse my not understanding this. Where is that? Oh, debt exclusion town under expenditures directly under operating budget.
So in the 10-year CIP plan, what we have showing for 27, we got the $15 million on the DPW building, but then we have $900,000 for complete streets, sidewalks of, what's that, $3,500,000.
So again, if just in the interest of clarity, are you looking for that, and unfortunately, this printout doesn't have the lines, the debts, under expenditures. There is operating budget, and then there is debt exclusion town.
Right, but there's, I'm saying.
At the top, sir, at the top, there is excluded debt, Parker David PSF, NIFS, DPW, and SBAB reimbursement. Are you asking that there be another line up top for the CIP so that it rolls into this overall number that is under town exclusion debt?
I don't know whether it'll be excluded or not. Some of it sounds like it should be excluded.
Okay, but you're
But
saying.
I just don't, I don't know where it is, and based on my analysis of their operating expense forecast, I don't think it's in there, because the debt service on this amount of money by the time you roll out to FY30 would be over $1 million.
Okay. Mr. Martin?
Just to be clear, the select board has not discussed or proposed to exclude any debt beyond that for the DPW facility. So in our view out, all the rest of the debt service is paid out of the operating budget. And we've certainly not proposed or discussed anything in the foreseeable future.
My understanding is the 10-year capital improvement plan has on the order of 90-something million. Did I get that right?
Yes, so I've told a lot of people this. We've only excluded debt for new buildings or significant renovations of existing buildings, or two exceptions. I won't go into the exceptions. And so if we, in part of that, we just decided that a building renovation was significant, maybe we would propose to exclude that debt.
I understand that
But
position.
we haven't done that. It's not in our,
That's not the question.
So,
I'm just,
if I may respond,
May come to the table if you'd like.
are we going to footnote the ALG plan to say there'll be no sidewalks, no stormwater for the next 5 years? Or are you telling me it's in your forecast, which is already too low?
I'm happy to address that question. Hi, John Mangiare, the town manager. When we presented the capital plan in December, I believe, or maybe late November, we presented it that it's a 10-year plan that we use to put on the table and help the public understand the capital needs that our departments have identified for all the operations that they oversee. We also said that the capital plan is a fluid document, and that the year that we're approaching is the year that we're really focused on in terms of how we're going to finance it, where it's going to go. Everything from year 2 to year 10 is placed somewhere to help people get used to the idea of what might happen. But it's not, we don't have a 10-year budget process. Town meeting doesn't approve multi-year budgets. They approve a single-year budget. And so the debt service for the general fund borrowing that we're proposing for the FY26 year would be paid out of the operating budget going forward. The amount of debt service payments that would be needed to fund those projects matches the amount that we're appropriating in the line item that says, well, it's new capital includes an amount that we do pay-as-you-go from free cash, and then another amount to cover the first-year debt service. That's meant to put into the financial model the amount of money needed to pay the debt service going forward for the life of the loan, whether it's a 5-year project, a 10-year project, or a 20-year project. That debt service amount that we've put into the yellow column is going to be in the budget going forward to cover that debt service. So excluded debt for years out further than the current year, we haven't discussed, the board hasn't proposed.
What I'm saying, John, is simply, if we're going to do a plan for 5 years, it ought to be based on the best information available. And if you say you have a 10-year plan that includes debt, it ought to be in your 5-year financial plan, the first 5 years. If not, we're distorting the ALG plan.
Unless,
so we have-
unless what Selectman Martin said is the gospel,
Well-
which is that no matter what, they're gonna make it be part of their operating budget, which I don't believe they will, but that is
Well,
what
then
he was
fine,
leading to.
let's take the proverbial 26 liner and put it out 5 years. Line by line, and not just say it can be 3.75.
So just to respond to that, that is something that we could do, but, and forecasting going forward, we do all the time. But the parameters that we're working within are different than parameters that maybe you're used to in other industries. Our select board get elected every year, not all of them, but a group, some of them. Our town meeting makes decisions every year. We can't put into this plan a definitive answer of the policy direction that the next 5 select boards are going to provide to the town manager for how to expend the town's resources. All we can do is identify the needs, identify a reasonable model for how to address those needs, and then continue to refine estimates as the year gets closer. And looking at 27 now is about the time we start looking at 27. Now, we've gotten 26 locked in, or I believe it's locked in. And now in March is about the time we start looking at 27 to see how we can refine that. And that started this morning. So we're right where we should be this time of year. And I think we could change the way we present the capital plan. I think the information presented has a lot of value. It's not prescriptive, but it certainly provides a lot of information.
John, from my point of view, if we have a 10-year capital plan, and you say, and I understand the turnover, if you will, in the select board, but if you say these are projects that we determined we need to do, I would think each successive board would see the merit of that. It's
Every year, they say no to projects that we want to do. That's the reality of public funding. We never get to do all the things that we want to do.
Then why don't we just skip the plan? I mean, why don't we just not plan ahead? We do our best to put together an ALG plan that says this is our best estimate, and we don't call it a budget, we call it a forecast of what we expect. And if we ignore parts of what we expect, that I will have to say that the 10-year CIP has been one of the biggest improvements I've seen in this town finance over the years. But if we ignore inputs that we have, we're fooling ourselves. Our ALG forecast now becomes wishful thinking instead of a forecast.
Mr. Jarbo.
Now's the time to pull the pin?
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly where.
Isn't that a metaphor for a grenade? And I suspect that may be the appropriate metaphor. If you were listening to the monkey wrench this morning, I was focused on the grenade. And so one of the challenges that every municipal government in this Commonwealth is going to face this year, next year, whenever, is the fact that some of our assumptions about what's going on in DC are about to change radically. One of them is supposed to start tomorrow when the price of steel goes up 25%. And as of this morning, it went up 50%. And as of this evening, it went up 25%. And if we're talking about long-range planning in that kind of world, wow. Okay? Now, does that impact the DPW? Absolutely. If we're talking, and again, we'll use the working number 40 million. If the price of steel goes up 14%, which was what it went up in 2018, then does that mean we reduce the scope of the building by 14% so we can stay at 40 million? And does that require new architect's drawings? Don't know. Flip side, I was not aware of the school board monkey wrench, but the speculation is now the Department of Education may get abolished. And the last school committee meeting that I attended, they were estimating that that's about 1.6 million in grants to the town of Acton Boxborough, or the Acton Boxborough School District. Does that mean we just roll with that punch? Where are those factored in? So we're in this really weird situation where if this were normal times, we could talk about where's the state aid, what's it going to be, let's estimate it. What laws could we get passed in the legislature between now and next fiscal year? How can the boards come together? But we're not in normal times. So how do you plan when everything around you seems chaotic and unpredictable? One of the things that I am going to go out on a limb for is to say I'm going to cut my colleagues on the select board some slack. They're wrestling with the same issue that we are. One of the things that I heard at our last meeting from Mary Ann is that at least one of the proposed new positions, the fire prevention officer, is revenue generating. So one of our conversations about FTEs, and I said, boy, it would be really nice if we came in at level funded FTEs. The answer is, oh, that's assuming they're all cost. If one's revenue generating, well, do I make an exception to that? Is that the sort of the asterisk that says, oh, well, that just paid for itself. So I think we can go beyond the 3%. I don't think the 3% has to be the line in the dust. I think in the greater scheme of things, getting as close to 3% as you can is the more prudent approach. And so that's how I would come down on that issue. When it comes to the DPW building, which is the other non-consensus item, I was assuming last fall that the issues that we were going to have to deal with is how close is this to the last override? To me, that's almost ancient history. What we are now faced with is the next override. And so I think the town and the schools are going to find themselves in a position where we're going to have to make a case together, and it will be stronger if it's together, for how do we fund the level of services that this community, A, can afford, and B, needs, when we can't count on the federal government doing the things that it used to do. We can't count on the state maintaining its level of services because it's going to be dealing with uncertainty from the federal level. And that process is going to take at least 2 years before it can self-correct. And so, yeah, my guess is we need to understand when we are quibbling and when we are making distinctions without a difference, and when we are being penny wise and pound foolish, and when, you know what, we're in a bigger storm.
Okay. Tara, is it quick?
Yeah, I just want to say I love this conversation. I agree with him about planning, so that next year you're not looking at the same thing, the brand-new thing that has to be done and has to be done now. And what are you going to do if Habitat for All passes and they're building it 5 times or 6 times what they would have in terms of the number of people, FTEs, and things like that? I personally think it's a really bad time to make huge decisions. 25% up, 25% down. I wouldn't be selling and buying right now. That's just my opinion. And the last thing is that if my taxes go down, federal taxes go down, I hope the state taxes go up to compensate, and they'll probably do it in a more efficient way, more direct. And I just think it's a bad time to make huge decisions without a long-range plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are certain things that we cannot predict in the forecasting, like the price of the steel or the inflation rate or the federal grants. But there are certain things that we know, which is what we focus in the budget forecasting, is that if we continue these services to the future, what will happen? And the two items, several items that are big in this budget is the health insurance and the pension expenses. With the health insurance and pension expenses going up 7 to 9% in a year, it's difficult to sustain. And I believe that a lot of the cost drivers for this 6.3% increase is due to this pension and health insurance, which bring to my suggestion that I think this kind of structural deficit with possible overrides in a near future, maybe like in 4 years, probably could not be resolved by just cutting some causes. Maybe this also need to be brought to the negotiation to labor negotiation with cutting some pensions. I don't know whether this is possible because the school district is also in the Middlesex pension. Town is in the Middlesex pension, and with the funding ratio and with the stock market not going up, as going down recently, it's that possible to bring this kind of fiscal pressure to the negotiation with the labor to bring down the cost from cutting some pension benefits. I know that this has been done in some other governments. Probably, I don't know whether it's in Massachusetts or not, but there are some cost-cutting measures that can be done in municipal pensions.
Thank you. So listening to everybody and the presentations and the feedback from the people in the room here, I'm a believer in scenario analysis as part of forecasting. I totally agree with the town manager that there's, what they would do for, projecting out a forecast. I'm sure there's a lot of minutia there that I'm not even aware of. But I think you could get to a forecast scenario where you have the baseline that's presented, and then you have a scenario where all capital projects are accepted, and then you have a scenario where, maybe government funding goes up or something as a best case scenario. So in a scenario analysis, I think the easiest way to communicate it, from my perspective, to the taxpayers would be to say, instead of scenario A, B, and C, here's the total dollars that we're going to be short. Let's say it's, $20 million in scenario A. We're short 40 million in scenario B. Scenario C, we're short 60 million. And here are potential ways that gap could be closed. Maybe there's a revenue suggestion. Maybe there's an expense cutting suggestion. I think that every service the town currently provides is wanted and needed. So there's not anything that's simple or easy to look at to remove. So I feel like laying it out early and making it clear to everybody that, okay, we're going to be short $20 million, and the options are we continue what we're doing, we find more revenue, we cut expense, and if we continue what we're doing, we have to have an override. and just kind of lay it out very simply early on. And granted that in the scenarios that there's going to be items on, the high scenario that the select board's not going to approve and will never be in the expense run. And there's going to be government funding that the town has been successful getting, that they will hopefully be successful getting again, that's going to alleviate pressure on it. But just kind of laying it out very simply early, instead of waiting for perfect forecasts and perfect scenarios and perfect information, and then get that communicated, up front.
The only thing that, I agree with all that, but the only thing that I would caution against is, I would caution against falling into an expectation that even if we do an 18-month warning of an override, there will become eventually override fatigue. And at some point, the taxpayer will not approve. And when that happens, you're not cutting in a planned way, you're cutting in a reactionary way. And that is a dangerous position to be in. Roland?
So I think we also got to keep in mind too, when we're going through this process again, that what our learning, our listening sessions, the information we got there. And also, as we're talking about, piggyback on Greg, we're talking about steel tariffs. It's also on copper and aluminum. So the next time the town goes to buy a new vehicle, it's going to be more expensive. They're going to need to wire the DPW building, or if we're doing any major renovations, we need to put a new wire. New copper is going to be a lot more expensive. So these are the things that we don't know what they're going to be, but we somehow need to be built into a forecast as well. That, best case scenario is DPW is going to cost $30 million, and the far end of it's going to be $40 million. If it's $30 million, I'd be a lot happier with it. I'm still with that, I still feel if you bring it to the town now, to the citizens, it's not gonna pass. And when we keep looking at sidewalks, we have a hard time maintaining what we have. How are we gonna be able to build more and maintain those? Because as you build it, there's a maintenance cost going forward into eternity. And again, you can walk from Town Hall down to Arboretum and the sidewalk is not even. And that hasn't been maintained. And going the other way was the same way. So, I have a hard problem with that. The sidewalks going down Newtown, but they stop. And I've seen kids biking on the road. I've seen people walking in the street, and that's a dangerous road. It's partial sidewalks. They just stop. Or they start and they stop. So we really got to look at those things as we move forward and thinking about if you're going to build more sidewalks and more roads and whatever, they need to be maintained. And we've got to come up with a mechanism to be able to maintain those. Instead of saying, oh, well, we want to build $30 million in new sidewalks, and we're going to go bond it.
No, that's not on the table. No.
I know it's not on the table, but it could be, right? And but you don't count for the maintenance going forward, it creates an issue.
So I'd like to try and bring the ALG update and guidance to a close by going back to the two items that we are not at consensus yet with the ALG model. And I'm going to do what I think is going to be the easier one first. Has anyone changed their mind on the DPW building?
Do you need a roll call?
I don't need a roll call because we don't have a motion, but I'm asking if there is anybody, and Dave, you're welcome to chime in here. Is it an accurate statement that we are still unanimously against this DPW project as it is currently scoped? Okay, like I said, that was the easier one. Now, on the topic of the consensus of the municipal budget for next year. And again, it's important to note that the municipal budget for next year is a 3.81% total increase, but it is a 4.56 operating plus offsets without excluded debt. So not even close to the 3% that we had originally asked. I heard Steve loud and clear. I'm going to speak on Christie's behalf because she did say it publicly last time that she is inclined to go along to get along and is inclined to let that be because she understands that times are tough. Greg, I heard a lot of words. Did I hear that you had changed your mind on the consensus of the municipal budget?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so I'm glad I heard that one right. So we're up to 3 voting members at this time. Roland, Scott,
I agree with the municipal side.
you ready to sign on to this 4.56 and 3.81 municipal budget at this time?
I thought it was 3.1 for the municipal.
3.81 total change, 3.8% change total spending, 4.56% change operating with offsets without excluded debt.
Close,
You're close.
yeah.
You'll probably be persuadable in the next 2 weeks. Town manager will call you, I'm sure. Scott?
I'm okay with the budget. One of my reasons for being okay with it was that I believe that there would be more vacancy that's not currently in the model. And this morning, the town manager mentioned that there was additional turnover in the police department. So I think that just supports the fact that there is vacancy not reflected, and the dollar amount, I think, could be covered by just a couple unexpected vacancies. So I feel like they could get lower than the projected with some unknown vacancy, which I think would happen. That's my guess.
So you're okay with them budgeting at this number, knowing that they're going to be able to come in under it and therefore have greater turnbacks, but you're willing to let them have this budgeted amount and compound on it for the following year?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Wellinghoff, coming to you, if you would please weigh in on the topic of whether or not you are on board with the municipal budget as it stands now.
No, I apologize. I didn't follow all the trade-offs involved in what agreeing to the budget at this point means.
It means that the average single-family tax bill is expected to go up $319, which is exceptionally low under historical standards because we have debt from the school side that is rolling off. The operating assessment without excluded debt from the school side is going up 3.12. The overall assessment from the school side is going up 1.12. That is reflective of the debt falling off. The town side, the percent change of operations plus offsets without excluded debt is going up 4.56%, and that the total spending percent change for the town side for next year is 3.81%. We are trying to get to consensus on this topic. And again, I would go back to we're already not at consensus for the DPW building. Does it make it easier or harder to be at consensus for a number that's not within our previous recommendation? I'll come back to you in a minute, Dave. I'm going to let Greg talk briefly. And then I'm going back to Dave.
Briefly. Yeah, the DPW building is bigger than a bread box. The cuts that were made in the last go-round in FTEs, there were 6 new FTEs proposed at one point. That was cut to 3. One of those is revenue generating, and the other 2 have been identified as likely to be vacant for some period of time. So to me, that's why it's close enough.
Thank you. Mr. Wellinghoff, would you care to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, that seems fair to me. I echo most of the sentiments, the comments already made. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that is quite the change from our last meeting. I believe we are able to go back to the town manager and the LG saying that we are willing to sign off on the municipal budget as currently presented in the current ALG plan. I would suggest that now that we have come to agreement on what we're going to come to agreement on, because I don't see us coming to agreement on the DPW building at all, I do want to see a scrubbed version of the municipal forecast for the out years, and I do want to see some more thought given to the new capital line item for the next 4 years. Just holding it at 1.25 doesn't seem consistent with the SIP plan. So I would like to see those changes for the next ALG meeting, which is in 3 weeks. Am I missing anything with regard to ALG at this time? Mr. Martin seems to think I missed something with regard to ALG at this time.
Yes, I'd just like to make one comment about the capital. Maybe put Mr. Noon's mind at ease just a little bit, maybe not all the way, but, and also talk to, increasing that new capital amount. So first of all, that new capital amount does include the new debt service, right? That gets included in the total town line in the ALG plan, and therefore is carried forward as the baseline for a new budget. So first of all, we don't lose that, so that's planned for any bonding that we include for 15 years to buy something, or 10 years to buy something. Second thing is, we have existed for a long time with capital expenses at about that level. If you go back and look at old ALGs, you might find some years where it's closer to $500,000, and some years where it's closer to $1.5 million. But it's been that amount for a long time, and we've been okay, right? I would hesitate to say that we want to start spending more than that or planning for more than that. We do have a lot of projects coming up, but we have to be able to afford, to keep that debt service within the future budgets, right? So I just want to say those two things because they kind of go together. One is we're not forgetting about that debt service. That debt service is included in the total town and carried forward. And secondly, that new capital is the amount that we go up each year. Maybe some years we might propose to do more, right? If we were doing a renovation in a building that's big enough to cause that line to go way up, but maybe small enough that we don't want to call it excluded debt. So, I'm not saying where we might go in the future, but we've existed at that level between $500,000 and $1.5 million for a long time.
Show me the numbers. Not the historic. If you're carrying another $26 million worth of debt service out the next 5 years, and you're going to have compensation growth going at 4%, and who knows what else, and you're going to wind up with a compounded 3.75% from fiscal 27 to fiscal 30, the math doesn't work.
I agree that the math at 3% doesn't work. We've been saying that for a long time. The math at 3% doesn't work.
I have been saying that for a long time.
Me too. We all agree. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we are done with the ALG update. It is time to move on to warrant article assignments. The copy of the warrant, the draft warrant that I have in front of me is not even 3 hours old yet. Revised at 6:45 p.m. So I believe if we still had presses, we'd get to call this hot off the presses. Let's see if I can share. I've had problems with my laptop connecting to. Give me just a minute to get this up and running. So as we've done in years past, the goal is to carve this up, giving people an opportunity to take the things that they would like to pursue, go get educated on those topics, ask your questions, do your due diligence, and come back to the committee with your recommendation as to how you feel the committee should vote. Please know that your recommendation may not always carry the day. It tends to. We tend to defer to the people who've done the due diligence, but that is not guaranteed. Okay, so now I need to share.
Can I ask a procedural question?
Please do.
So hypothetically, let's say I wasn't going to be here for town meeting.
Hypothetically, you're going to be someplace nice.
Hypothetically, I might even be in another country. Should I then not take a warrant article? Or if we're going to vote on our position, sometime in, let's say, mid-April, is it worth then taking that article, making one's recommendation, having this board vote in time to be in the warrant, and then flaking out?
Yes, you take the warrant article, you do your due diligence. We have to have our if we're going to get it done in time for it to be printed in the warrant, it has to be done by April 15th. If you're not going to be here in time for a town meeting, if it's a case of, Madam Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends this article, I'm sure somebody else can take it from you. If it ends up being something more complex, you might be on the hook to write a paragraph or two in advance, and you can then delegate that to who you wish. If not, I'll do it.
I couldn't call in from another time zone.
Not to town meetings. Unfortunately, town meetings still require that you be there in person. Okay. So with the caveat that these numbers can change, and I honestly haven't seen this yet because it's 3 hours old. Okay, I do not see any citizens petitions on here yet. What's the deadline for citizens petitions? Does anyone know? 21st. Okay. Okay. Let's see. I don't think we need to assign anyone to choose town officers or receive and accept reports. Budget transfer is also not controversial. Appropriation for municipal operating budget. That is one of the larger ones that traditionally falls to the chair. I'm prepared to take it unless somebody wants to arm wrestle me for it. Okay, that one's mine. Appropriation for town capital equipment and projects. I'm assuming that is the DPW building. Nope. So 5 is the town capital, the regular majority vote. Who wants to take that one? Don't all speak at once. Okay, I'll take that one too. Authorized borrowing for town capital equipment and projects 2/3. That goes hand in hand with 5. Okay, so I'll get 4, 5, and 6. 7 is going to be somebody else.
Construction of new public works facility.
We don't need to have particularly long conversations on them. If there's something that doesn't make sense, we might come to you for some clarification, but I don't necessarily want to go through all 33 of them with snippets. DPW building.
I'll take it.
You'll take it, but you won't be able to present the speech, so you'll have to work with somebody else to finalize the speech. You got it?
Yeah.
Fine, you got it in the interim.
Jason, can I have a procedural question? Is this separate from the override, logic part of the override?
So the debt exclusion vote is a ballot vote a week or two before town meeting. If the DPW fails at the ballot, I'm going to make the assumption that the select board is not going to pass over this article if it has already failed at the ballot. Make sense? Okay. Acton Boxer Regional School District. Christy did tell me that she would like to take that one. It's hers. Who would like to take Minuteman? Thank you, Steve. Someone's taking notes on all this, please, yes? CPC, Roland, excellent. OPEB, Steve, thanks for volunteering, Steve. Home rule petition, Acton. Acton Memorial Library. Who would like to take on the Acton?
I'll take it. I need to take something.
Scott's got the Acton Memorial Library. Authorized real property disposition, 13 School Street. Oh, I shouldn't have clicked on that. This is one of the ones that I don't, if you'd like to take a minute on this one, Mr. Manager, we would greatly appreciate it. And you might as well sit at the table, because you're going to be here if you're going to be here for the duration of it, there's no reason for you to have to stand.
Great, thank you for the opportunity. So we worked pretty hard to try to get this warrant at the 98% complete, which I think it's at. And so if you have time, obviously you didn't have time before this meeting, but if you have time later, I hope you have a chance to look through it and reach out with any questions. But this article is to authorize the town to sell the parcel that is located on School Street, which is currently used as a municipal parking lot. And it is being sold, it's being considered by, we issued an RFP to see if there's interest in someone buying if you look on this map, the little fire station, the old fire station on the corner of School Street and Main Street, that's 3 School Street. And then there's a piece of land in between it, and then this parking lot is 13 School Street. So we're asking the development community or whomever if they're interested in acquiring both of those parcels to develop them in a way that meets the town's goals and objectives. And they have to, if they're interested, they have to get back to us by the end of April with a response that outlines how they're going to be responsive to the select board's priorities as it relates to this land.
Okay. Who would like this one? Scott, it's yours. Collective bargaining agreement with the fire department.
Normally, I do all the collective bargaining.
That's why I'm looking at you with such intensity. You good with that one?
Well, then it's the police patrol and police superior officers coming right after it, right?
14, 15, 16 are all yours.
You're gonna have to pay me more for this one.
I will. I'll double your salary. Okay. Authorize revolving fund budgets. Is this at all controversial, or is this just administerial?
This is often on consent.
Okay. We'll still assign to someone just in case there's some kind of weirdness. Dave, I see that you've gone off mute. Is that because you wanted to weigh in on something?
I shouldn't have done that. Sounds good.
Okay, you got 17. I'm going to give you a couple more before you disappear. 18, commuter lot and station maintenance. Actually, that is something that you have traditionally taken, Mr. Wellinghoff. Yes. Great. Septage disposal. No, that was a clear, emphatic volunteer. I heard it. Septage disposal enterprise budget. Again, is this on consent?
Yes, all these ones in the teens are typically on consent, up through 30, actually.
Okay, so just in case there's any surprises, so 19. Okay, so we get into the enterprise budgets. We're not expecting any issues with these.
Mr. Chair, if I may, all of those consent item ones you can assign to new members.
Yeah.
They usually don't come up, but if they do, at least they have to go through the process of learning about them.
19 through, let's see, 19 through 30, so that's 11. So 19 through 25.
29 would be.
Okay, 19 through 24 are yours, Dr. Chen, and 25 through 29 are yours, Mr. Lenz.
Twenty-five through 29?
You're
Confirmed.
25 through
Thank you.
29, you're 19 through 24. Talk to me after, we'll make sure that you're on board. Okay, Article 30, accessory dwelling unit amend zoning bylaw. Who wants this one? Roland wants it? Roland wants this one.
Are you assigning things to people that aren't here as well?
I was going to say, don't forget Allison, we have an attorney. A lot of that planning stuff.
So yeah, let's give Allison 30. This is what she gets for not showing up tonight. Allison gets 30. 31 is open space residential development. So, what's that? That's
So
the
in these
Habitat.
zoning articles, there'll be a public hearing next week where the public weighs in on them for the planning board to then make their recommendation officially to the board. So these will change based on what happens at the public hearing, but this is where they are as of today.
I nominate Allison.
Allison gets 30 and 31. We need to give something to Corinne here. Yes. Can you hold for just 1 minute, because we have 2 more of these to go. But please, you can grab at the table. So 32, let's get to 32. That's a long one.
This is leaf blower, general bylaw, which is not shown in here. It's a placeholder, but the select boards will be discussing it next week.
Corinne's gonna love that one. That's Corinne's, and we're gonna give her 33 as well. Unless you really wanted it, Mr. Lenz. Okay. All I know is that when I finally show this draft to my neighbor, he's gonna lose his ever-loving mind. Okay. So, when the select board, assigns who has this one, please do let us know. This one could be fun. Ms. Nichol, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to get through the lists while we were at a cadence.
I wanted to say something before you assigned one. Christy reached out to me. We did not ever connect with a time that worked for both of us about Habitat for All. I don't know how much she's followed, if she's attended the different public workshops that have been online, but you might want to check in with her because she may be already ahead of the curve.
Okay.
Because she did express intense interest in that. And I was also going to suggest perhaps, Mr. Sullivan, you sounded like you just wanted one because you needed one, the Memorial Library. I was going to suggest Mr. Lenz because you spoke so eloquently about libraries during the budget workshop. So if you have a particular fondness and interest in libraries, that might be appropriate for you. But no hard feelings.
No, hey, I'm happy to. I think it's all a learning process for me, so.
How much money do you have on you? I'm just kidding.
Zero. I have zero money on me.
I'm fine with that. I just, that's fine.
Alex, you got the library.
You got the library.
Okay, and I will give, to your point, I will give Christie right of first refusal on Habitat for All, and if she decides not to take up that article, it will go to, I believe, we said Corinne? No, Allison. So Allison definitely has one. Go ahead.
Thank you. Could I just confirm, so we changed Article 12 from Mr. Sullivan to Mr. Lenz, and who has Article 13 then? Oh, you as well, Scott, but not as well, but you kept 13. Thank you.
It is my lucky number. It's truly my lucky
Would you
number.
like 25 through 29?
I can
No.
give you what I did on those a couple of years ago. It probably hasn't changed.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
But they're still yours. They're still yours. Okay, I believe we have carved these up. From a timing perspective, let's take a look at the calendar here. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, so if people are, 30 is just to make us compliant with state law, that's the accessory dwelling unit zoning. 31 is particular to Acton, so is more involved. And did you ask at the end of the discussion when, to know who the select board was assigned to each?
I know it's going to be in some future version of the draft, but in particular, I would like you to, if you happen to know who it is, which of the select board members is going to be the leaf blower? It's you, David.
So I didn't know which of the last two you were asking, so they are in this draft. I have the leaf blower one, Jim has the tree clearing delay one.
Okay. So for people new to this process, the objective, and I would like to thank the town manager for getting this to us as early as he did. The purpose of this is so that we can go do our due diligence, get ourselves educated. If there's something that we don't understand or something that we don't like, give the people who are advocating an opportunity to persuade us, or not. So our next meeting is in 2 weeks. We will have a Minuteman next week, and I will invite CPC if they're. Do you think they're going to be ready by then? I need to stop sharing before I switch over to this other screen. 25th. I need to invite CPC. We will not get through all of these in one night, and I believe we have a meeting, and I need to double check this. I believe we have a meeting. Come on. We have the 25th, and then I believe we're meeting on the 8th. Yeah. My understanding is that the go-to-print date is the 15th, so we have to have everything written on the 14th. The 15th, it would be our meeting after that, so we've got 2 meetings to go through. 2 meetings to go through all of these.
Just a heads up, I am likely, I'm in Texas that week of the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible I might be able to call in, but not guaranteed.
Understood. We will plan accordingly. Gosh. Okay. Other dates that I want people to be aware of, we are also doing the next ALG meeting on April 8th, so we get to have another morning, evening session. I think it's all over but the shouting at this point. I would like the out years cleaned up. Looks like we're consensus on budget, and unfortunately, it looks like for the first time in the history of ALG, we will not get to consensus. I will have to write that up appropriately. Okay, are we good on warrant cut-ups? For the new members, if you have questions, if you would like some guidance, please do not hesitate to call me. Okay. Believe with that, we get to move on to the Finance Committee business. We have multiple meeting minutes to review. As is always the case, I have a couple of comments. We'll take these one at a time. Take care. Thank you, Mr. Manager. We'll take this one at a time. January 15th, page 5, the very top of the page. It's Mr. Lenz, L-E-N-Z, not Lunz, L-U-N-Z. On that same one, page 5, under police, my comment, I did not ask if the data was correct. It was accurate on the speed traps. I asked if the data would be used to determine if the speed limits in the air, on the streets where those speed traps are, met guidelines, if they were accurate. So that's the second phrase of that is what I had asked. I did not ask if the speed traps are accurate. I don't care if they're accurate. I care if they're being used to determine if the speed limit is properly set. Does anybody have any other amendments for the one on January 15th? For the one for January 21st, page 3, line 4. Again, his name is Lenz, L-E-N-Z. Does anybody else have any other comments for 121? Seeing none, I will move on. 211. For the meeting minutes of 211, page 4, line 1, change the word do to does. It's just bad grammar. Page 5, 6 lines from the bottom. Needs a question mark at the end of the sentence that begins with why. The question, why, W-H-Y. Page 6, they have a section about the policy about overrides. This was not on the agenda at all. It didn't even come up until the ALG meeting after this meeting. So that whole section about the policy about overrides was postponed. That whole section needs to go. Page 6, under the library. Mr. Jarbo, I believe you called it the kudos for KPI award, not just the KPI award. So that change should be reflected as well. Does anyone else have any other changes for the meeting minutes of 211? Okay. Meeting minutes of 225. Page 2, second to last line. It's a dangling conversation. It just stops. So to read that, 225, let's get this called up. 225, what did I say? Second to last line. Page 2, second to last line. And for the record, I'm being nitpicky here, but I am so thankful not to have to do this, and I would like to thank Teresa and Marianne for doing this for us. So while it sounds like I'm being picky and, mean-spirited, thank you very much for doing it. I'm so glad I don't have to. Page 1, page 2.
You're welcome, and I will not miss this when I retire.
Oh, I bet. Okay, page 2. Mr. Jarbo, as an example of holding the line, at select board meeting last night, they voted to charge the Acton Food Pantry, quote, up to $4,000 for building permit fees, comma, when they, and then the conversation dangles. What is everyone's recollection of what Mr. Jarbo said? So should we remove the word when they in the preceding comma and replace it with a period? Done. Okay. Page 3. Page 3. My comment on overrides, I said I believe I said it had to be declared before the end of October, and in the past, it was declared at the previous town meeting, and that we should go back to that. Does anybody have any other changes that they wish to make to the meeting minutes of 225? I will take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, will you take one motion?
Yes, I will.
Okay, then I move that we approve the minutes of January 15th as amended, January 21st as amended, February 11th as amended, and February 25th as amended.
Second.
Unfortunately, this is he left. So I guess I don't have to do a roll call vote because Dave has left. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That is unanimous. Okay, we are at the stage of, excuse me. We are at the stage of liaison reports. Roland, do you have the microphone on for a report? Mr. Jarbo.
The Economic Development Committee held a ribbon cutting on Friday at the Silver Girl in West Acton. There is another ribbon cutting coming up at the Mexican restaurant in Nagog. If any of you want to join these kind of things, let us know. We got a crowd, and you get to actually help your community by building its tax base, and the food's good.
Excellent. Any other liaison reports at this time? Marianne, you look like you want to say something.
No, I am all. No, thank you, I'm all set.
Okay. Mr. Lenz, we turn our lonely eyes to you.
The cocktails at Silver Girl are pretty good, right? I'd like, yes, I'd like to, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Have a wonderful night.
Get healthy, Jason.
I will do my best.